Hello everyone and welcome to the second day of the AirThings Masters. So we're starting off with a game between Alexandra, Kosteniuk and Magnus, Carlsen. It's quite a wild one and you guys will enjoy it. So without further ado, let's dive straight into it. Alexandra with the white pieces opens with e4 and she is, yes, the only woman in the tournament, and she is, much lower rated than the rest of the field, but she is playing some very, very interesting games, and we'll see how much, damage she will be able to do. First day did not go well to her. For her, she lost all 4 games, but she had an incredibly strong opponent. She played Giri Mamedyarov, I think. Let me just check. I don't want to trick you guys. Who are the opponents exactly? So first round she played against Duda, second game Aronian, third game Mamedyarov, fourth game Anish, and she lost all 4 of them. And the Magnus, he also did not have a great first day, but he did not lose 4 games. So it's a very, very important game to start off day 2. So like I said, Alexandra opens with e4 and Magnus replies with c5, as he usually does against the e4 opening. Knight to f3, we have e6, and now not going for the standard d4 or bishop to b5, but rather c3, going for the Alapin variation, and Magnus replies in a very principled manner, and that is of course pawn to d5. The pawn is on c3, so we're not worried about captures and even capturing with the queen, since you cannot place a knight on c3 to gain free tempo on the queen. So here e captures on d5, but now not queen captures. Magnus instead goes for e captures on d5. We have d4, and now knight to c6. So this is all very standard stuff. Bishop to b5. We have bishop to d6 by Magnus and castles by Alexandra. We have knight to f6. And now, well, you could deliver a check here. It's not really all that impressive. Black can just block with bishop to e6. So instead, d captures on c5, forcing Magnus to waste a tempo. Bishop captures on c5, and now knight to d4, improving the position of the knight, but also putting some pressure on the c6 square, as it's now attacked twice. But Magnus doesn't really find this interesting. He just castles. Interestingly, this position is a known one. Bishop to d7 and also bishop captures on d4 are known moves here, but Magnus just castles, and he offers up the pawn on b7 basically, but you can't capture this move. And of course it is as of move 9 that we have a completely new game. If Alexandra goes after the pawn, then it's bad news. For example, captures. Yes, the rook is hanging, but there's knight g4, and how are you defending against this? If you capture the rook, then comes queen to h4 with the threat of checkmate, but also the f2 pawn is attacked 3 times, and once you defend this, let's say h3, knight captures on f2, let's say bishop captures, queen captures, or even better, you could play rook captures, and after bishop captures, now king to h1, there's bishop captures on h3. Maybe even a better defense for white, but it is not enough, so here everything just loses. If bishop f4 trying to hide like this, then bishop g4 opens up a discovery, wins the white queen, so it would be hopeless. So whatever you do, it's just a bad idea. So of course not grabbing the pawn, bishop to e3, she continues development, and now you could again go for knight to g4. It's a very nice move. The queen can maybe come to h4. The bishop on e3 is the target, but Magnus decides to just keep it very solid. We have queen to d6 and now h3. Alexandra realizes that there could be something happening, so the g4 square should be covered, and bishop back to b6 now. Very important move, as you do not want to trade this bishop. However, you do want to place it on c7, and as the white knight is not on f3 guarding the h2 square, bishop c7, queen d6 battery will probably be able to do a lot of damage. So knight d2. And here knight captures on d4, c captures on d4, and the bishop to f5. A very nice developing square for the light square bishop. We have knight back to f3, and now rook 8 to c8, occupying the open c file. And while Alexandra could place maybe the rook on c1, it is more important to play something like bishop to d3 and eliminate one of the bishops. So here, knight to e4. Magnus decides that he is going to keep material on the board. He doesn't want to trade. And now queen to b3. Alexandra develops the queen, connects the rooks. well, just asks Magnus, what is your plan here? And you might think Magnus will play something like rook f to e8. You might think he's going to play rook to c7, maybe double up rooks on the c file. Those are all very good moves. Maybe play rook c7 and then double up on the e file this way. But no, he plays a rook c to e8, and it's a really weird move to see, since you're locking in your own rook on f8. But I think Magnus was really just anticipating Alexandra's next move, because the pieces are placed as they are. So the next move from white does seem to be logical. Now, you should continue with something like rook to c1, rook c2, double up rooks on the c file, or maybe a4, a5, completely ignoring what black is doing, as it's really weird. But she played knight to e5, and she sort of plays right into Carlsen's hands as she runs into f6. And now, okay, it's a weakening of Magnus's position, but also it gives him additional support for executing g5 and h5, and that's what he's going for. So knight back to f3. And now you wouldn't be able to play g5 here because it's covered by the bishop and the knight, but the existence of the pawn on f6 makes it possible. So here Magnus goes g5, and okay, rook f to c1. She's now ready to double up rooks on the c file, but now we have h5, preparing to bust open the position with the g4. So knight to d2, and now king to g7. If the position opens up, Magnus wants to be able to bring his rooks into the attack. So bishop captures on e4, we have bishop captures, and the knight captures. She eliminates two of the attackers, but now rook captures on e4, and now comes a4. So not a lot to do with white, but wait and see what those pawns will do. Rook to f7, a very interesting move by Magnus. Magnus doesn't even play bishop to c7, which is kind of the move you want to play. You don't really care about the g3 or something like that. You can just easily open up the position. Point is, Alexandra would very happily give up the rook for the bishop here, so Magnus doesn't even allow this. He plays rook to f7 first, and he says, I'm gonna play bishop to c7, but then if you trade, I want to play rook captures on c7 and have my own rook on the open c file. So rook to c8, now she's bringing the other rook to c1, and only now bishop to c7. So now this doesn't really do all that much, because we're just going to capture on c7 and control the c1 square. So she brings the other rook into the action with rook to c1, and now Magnus just goes for queen to h2 with check, king to f1, and now bishop to f4. Very, very nicely done, saying that, okay, if you capture the bishop, then queen h1 is checkmate. The rook now controls the e file, so you have to try something else. Queen captures on d5 was played attacking the rook, but now queen h1 check, king e2, queen captures on g2, guarding the rook, and after king to d1, queen to f3 with check. We have king to c2, and now, of course, the position is completely winning for Magnus, but we always have to play that absolute best move, otherwise we allow our opponent an opportunity to get back into the game. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the absolute best move for Magnus while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting anything. Either bishop captures on e3 or rook captures on e3, or even queen captures on h3 is fine, but rook captures on e3 is the absolute best. So congratulations to everyone who decided for this move, as it was in this position on move 30 that Alexandra Kosteniuk resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. You just capture the piece and you are threatening to pick up the queen, and there really isn't anything better. You have to trade here after queen captures. We're going to play rook captures here, and now we're just up a full bishop, and well, there's just no counterplay here for white. So whatever you do after this rook captures on e3 is simply insufficient, and of course she knows this, and that's why the game was resigned in this position. So yeah, really a nice start, and you can see how she played a brilliant game up until the point where she allowed Magnus this tricky idea. Of course, the game is not lost after knight to e5, but it just gives black this very, very annoying counterplay with just allowing this pawn push g5, h5, g4, and it's not, like I said, it's not of course lost, but it's so easy to play this with black. The moves just appear in front of you, and with white you have to play brilliantly to just stay alive. And of course, you know that bishop to c7 is coming. I mean, how do you even start defending this, especially in a rapid time format. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Lucifer45 Non-Commercial EP, Dale Cook, Anwar, the 95% American Flag Numa, David Kimura, and the Doug Reynolds for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the AirThings Masters until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.